plug here. Tara was in the second issue of Fellow Travelers, which is available over at the slop stand.
I'll go back if you
It's
need
real
me.
good.
Now you hit him up at the intermission. Tara's in issue number 2. This is issue number 3. I barely even remember who's next, but I'm sure they're fine. Tara has sacrificed her lungs and soul to
I've
be
been
here.
sick for the entire month of March.
Dramatic. She's lying. She's lying.
So please give another round to Tara.
Only here because J.M. is a good friend.
Which is very exciting.
Shots
Because
fired.
you've just applauded the person who gave each and every one of you tuberculosis.
I already got it. I'm inoculated.
Yeah, I mean you have the complexion
From my
for
blood.
it.
Wow.
All right. So we have one more act here before intermission. We're going to do a short intermission after this act. For the rest of the night here. Our next act is asked to be introduced without spectacle, without any particular gimmickry on my part. So just try to take him as he is. Please welcome our next act, who is hitting his music as we speak. Yes?
It's Christie's.
I can kill time if that's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
From the tuberculosis ward. Folks, it's David Foster Wallace.
Yeah, song game.
God damn it.
Do you need tech help?
Cough blood if it needed assistance.
But so before I begin, I must express my unreal gratitude to the organizers of tonight's festivities. On the one, Jack Daniel Christie, and on the two, J.M. Frank Chateau, but above all, a third and perhaps even greater artist, an entity of such cosmic talent and otherworldly instinct, and without whom none of us would be here tonight, either in the literal or metaphorical flesh. That is to say, the sine qua non of Montreal's aging millennial Anglophone literary community. A person whose pathological fear of IKEA furniture and whose sense for the cavernous is quite possibly unsurpassable. In fact, yes, let me be so rhetorically grotesque as to actually exhort you to bring your hands out of their mittens and slap them together.
Yes!
These well-appointed walls. Please clap. Wow, holy cow. That's some good reverb, let me tell you. But so while I do not actually know your name, I do most intimately know your game. So thank you for the third pillar of tonight's forthcoming shenanigans. The decorator of this apartment. Now, to chase those preambulatory remarks, I want to answer the questions you're all asking yourselves. First, how many drugs is this guy on? Second, how can I personally acquire those drugs? Both of which questions I am admittedly a bit reluctant to answer. But ones I can and will answer, if you can just holster your hate boners for a moment and indulge my treacly earnestness, because the truth is the only drug that I am currently high on right now is the drug of life itself.
Yeah! I'm sorry I wrote that essay.
Buried under the ground. No, I am not Lazarus. Yes, I am the ghost of David Foster Wallace. I'm the cloak of a gigantic, unwashed bedsheet that I have been summoned tonight to address the most recent hit piece in the Discordia Substack. Quote, David Foster Wallace casts a great shadow over 21st century literature. Yes, David Foster Wallace, that fat-headed nerd with his beady little eyes and Axl Rose bandana, with one big book allegedly propped open the door to the new millennium. I read that book in my youth, and I loved it just like everyone else seemed to. But then I noticed something odd as time went on. People would ask me if they should read Infinite Jest, and I'd answer in the affirmative. Yes, of course. Great book. Infamously bad and racist Wardine chapter. Well, I guess as a resident of Quebec in particular, I don't really understand the Quebec parts, which I think are just wacky and random, and was frankly easier to swallow when South Park was doing it. So beyond that, I suppose, yes, great book. Although that's not the only humor that falls flat. Actually, in fact, a lot of the jokes in hindsight are just sort of obnoxious or get overly labored or aren't especially clever, but still gratuitously self-congratulatory. You kind of feel like listening to a precocious teenager miserably attempting to, quote, riff. Aside from the characters who feel like a bunch of manic squirrels bounding across a lawn, whose zany escapades and eccentricities get old fast and help to occlude a totally empty center. And it's honestly maybe a little padded, goes on for too long, and doesn't really justify its own length. Aside from just that, a lot of shit happens. And yet, in spite of everything going on in the book and all the layered allusions within, so much of it is just in service of some shallow and predictable Gen X themes. Oh, and the prose is pretty inconsistent in quality. It sure has a lot of caveats to its greatness, huh? The older I grew, the more mountainous this pile of caveats became. And the more I think on the book, the more every blemish became harder and harder to overlook. I took my initial 5-star Goodreads review down to a 4. Some days when I'm in a particular state of mind, it dangles over the precipice of falling to a 2. He goes on to characterize me as the, quote, great Satan of 21st century. A Satan which, supposedly, all upcoming writers must overcome in order to get theirs. A malevolent and raving video game boss. It is in this struggle to overcome the monolithic shadow of Infinite Jest, a book I wrote 30 years ago, I might add. It's a veritable conga line of substackers, blog jihadists, book talkers, 4chan lit board trolls, podcast psyopers, magazine fiends, and numerous others to engage in an ugly and unsubtle campaign of father-slaying pageantry. May not be aesthetically or spiritually up to the Miltonian task of besting the jester, which has them instead resorting to all sorts of frankly weird and hilarious Oedipus-like sublimations, fashioning Infinite Jest into a bong, or ripping out its pages to be made into sandwiches, or fruiting its body with mushroom spores, or memorably shoving entire paragraphs up their bottoms to be, and I quote, butt chugged. People do this to a room of one's own? Did Chaucer have to suffer the indignity of having the Canterbury Tales launched up another human's butt? Prose canoeing through the glowing pink innards of a lady's rump, and it's possible that copies of Ulysses have been put at even deeper, darker, and more curvaceous ends than Infinite Jest. The point stands that, as far as silly little novels go, Infinite Jest seems to get an unusually bum rap.
Hey, yo!
Then it's possibly being the last big capital L literary novel to have snuck behind enemy lines and carved out a beachhead in the popular imagination. Whether that is an accomplishment that warrants your spite, your scorn, your mockery, your Jordan-esque campaign of dunk after rim-busting dunk, I leave to you to assess. And God knows you are capable of rendering a far more thoughtful and considered judgment on that point than the very biased target of said same spite, scorn, and mockery. But when it comes to answering Mr. Christie in particular, I have no problem answering for myself. Mr. Christie, your scurrilous and meticulously footnoted essay has the red-handed hallmarks of a certain, quote, fat-headed nerd with his
Yeah! Fuck him up!
Rather than rebutting your essay point by belabored point, I'd instead like to give the crowd what it so desperately wants, and it wants the entertainment. Mr. Christie, please come here and supply them the entertainment, which is the...
Yeah! Get your ass up there! Get up, you bitch!
Do you consent to your being publicly spanked by a vintage Enfield Tennis Academy tennis racket? Do you consent to your being publicly spanked by a vintage Enfield Tennis Academy tennis racket?
Sure.
Give me your drink.
Yeah, we don't want any spills up
Go
here.
for it.
Assume the position.
Yeah. You want to hold my hand while you do it?
Come on, ass out, turn around.
Yeah, turn back. The other way.
Wait, let go.
Towards David.
Ass out.
One.
2.
How many
Three.
are you taking?
4.
Harder. Come on.
5. 6.
7, 8.
9. 10. One who would suffer for his art. You're done? David Foster Wallace, everybody. All right, we are going to take a legitimately quick break in 15 minutes. If you would like to go smoke out on the balcony and don't climb the ladder, we will be back with 2 more acts tonight. It'll be a shorter second half, so let's continue to hang. Thank you for being here. And also, I will say, this magazine is $5 tonight. It's a special, which Jonathan was in. Also, if you would like a copy of what Tara was in, there's one over there. Buy some of our shit. It'll change your life. It'll make it worse. See you in 15 minutes.